I'm Andrew Henderson. This is a tour of my home in Bogota, Colombia. I bought this home in 2019 for 660 million Colombian pesos, which at the time, the peso was about 3,500 to the dollar. It came out to about $157,000, $160,000. The property actually went up in value for the next couple of years, both in peso terms and in dollar terms. In the last year or so, property in Colombia has come down a little bit, so I'm a little bit above what I paid for it. What drove me to buy property in Colombia out of all the countries in Latin America was they offered a permanent residence program for anyone who bought real estate valued at 650 million pesos or more. And so that's what guided my search, was that this property was right in that price range. I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend any time in Bogota. I'd been there numerous times before. I wasn't really sure how I would use it or if I would use it very much. And so I spent the minimum or barely over it. My advice to anyone who's buying property for a residence permit or a citizenship is to really understand whether you're going to live there. And particularly if you're looking for some kind of asset or currency diversification, to perhaps spend a bit more than the minimum. Don't use it as the guidepost of what you should spend. I love the home and I do spend a couple weeks a year there. I even spent 5 months during 2021 when other places that I lived during the pandemic were not as open. But if I were to do it again, I would have bought something that was a little bit bigger and not follow the minimum. The challenge in a country like Colombia is that the currency can go down against a larger currency like the US dollar. And so it got as bad as 5,000 pesos to the dollar in 2023. It's now come up substantially in 2024. And so the value of the peso now versus when I bought is a little bit lower. Real estate in good neighborhoods in a place like Colombia, this is also true of Turkey. I've read about places like Iran and Lebanon where they have currency crises. In US dollars, actually relatively kept pace. And so long term, the value of the currency doesn't bother me as much if you're living in an area where there's international demand. The idea behind this home is it's not the largest one I have, but it has enough rooms for either a short business trip. You can bring your spouse with you. You still have space to spread out. So you have 3 different bedrooms, one of which we turned into an office. You have 3 different bathrooms, one of which is ensuite in your main bedroom. Another is shared between your office and your guest room. And then what we did was turn this maid's area into extra storage space. We had a great contractor named Danielle who brought a lot of great ideas, and one of them was, you're traveling, you're going to accumulate some stuff, have a place to store it. If you're not going to have a maid living with you, do that. And then we ended up turning what used to be the maid's bathroom into a little bit nicer, just kind of extra bathroom to have, kind of like the man cave bathroom that you go when the other 2 are occupied. One of the things that I love about Bogota in general, about this property, is it's extremely green. People who have never been to Bogota may think that because it's in Colombia, because you're not that far from the equator, that it's more of a desert. For some reason, people always mention that. But you're in Bogota at a very high altitude. And so you've got beautiful mountain views out the window. You've got just a wall of greenery that hits you when you walk in. And for some reason, I end up in a lot of cities where there's just lots of greenery, and that adds a really nice ambiance to it. The color scheme of the home was inspired, as I try and do in every home, by what's happening in Colombia. So a gold, but a more antique, a more distressed gold for metal accents. Emerald as an accent color and as a stone color, because Colombia is a big producer of emeralds, and you can buy them at comparatively low prices to what you'd pay in many other places because they are produced here. I have friends who say, I can look at a place that you live and I can tell, he designed that. And the one exception is here in Colombia, where I decided to really take a lot of license and not only create sort of a Latin American flair, but to add a lot of unique pieces. There's something about just being in the vibrance of this city and in this country that I normally wouldn't put a toucan lamp in my house. But I was convinced, and I ended up really loving it. One of the other things I try and do in any renovation and furnishing project is to use as many local materials as possible. And that's number one, because I want to support local craftsmen and local stores. And number two, from a logistics point of view, you go to a lot of places, especially in the emerging world, and people have this fascination with furniture from Italy and custom making furniture there. And it ends up taking forever. I learned my lesson once, and I won't do that again. So I like to buy things that are in stock or things that you can custom make, but that are done locally. And so what might take 6 to 12 months in my experience to bring in from Italy, you can have made between 4 and 8 weeks locally. And I found that to be pretty consistently true in many countries around the world. And so beautiful Chesterfield sofa made from Colombian leather. Just to me, you have kind of that finca culture in Colombia, the farmhouse, that rustic feel. To me, Bogota is a very sophisticated city. My tailor would say, you never wear shorts in Bogota. People really, dress up, perhaps more than someone who's not from here would think. I mean, this is a city, people are up early, people are out, people are doing things. And so there's a certain kind of class, and yet I think also in the country in general, there's a bit of a rustic aspect. What I see in my travels, you go to Asia. Asia it's big, it's glass, it's skyscrapers, it's sprawling malls, whether it's in Dubai or Singapore or China. That's the vibe. It's much more light, it's much more airy, floor-to-ceiling windows. And to me, Latin America is more understated. I mean, the malls, for example, down the street here, it's a nice mall, but it's certainly not what you'd find in Asia. And so I really wanted things to be understated. I wanted, again, kind of a little bit of a rustic element. I decided for the walls, I like symmetry, I like to have uniformity, and so I chose 5 different photos of sites from around Colombia and went to a great Photoshop, the Zambrano Photoshop, and we sat for an hour and put a matching sepia tone on all the photographs that are in the living area. There's an artist, Roman Roncancio, who paints these beautiful scenes of Colombian life. And the photo studio says, well, we can get one of those and we can reproduce it and we can cut it in half. And so you have 2 different large framed pictures, one over the dining table, one over the living area, that are actually the top and bottom of the same print. And I felt like one represented more of a kind of a picnic in Latin American life, and that would go in the dining area, and one represented more kind of everyday life that would go in the living area. You have furnishings that are wood, so locally sourced things, whether it's a bed that was, made by Danielle's team, whether it was, coffee tables, things like that. You have a number of wood pieces throughout, beautiful dining table. I had a birthday party here a couple of years ago. And so it's just, what's that overall feeling of what is Colombia? And so many years ago, when I lived in the United States and I had, one place, and that's where I spent all my time, I tried to bring different elements together. I had a bedroom that had an Asian theme, and I really enjoyed that, and different themes throughout the house. Here, what I try and do now is, when I'm in Colombia, this is my base in Latin America, I want to feel like I'm in Latin America. And you look out your window, you go out, and people are bicycling on the weekends, and people are jogging, and people are active, and they have their dogs out. And I really wanted to kind of capture that more laid-back vibe. I think less of a consumerist vibe that you would find in maybe other places that I live. Just kind of a connection with nature. And then you look at the kitchen and kind of that American style big, stainless steel refrigerator that takes up a lot of space, and there's a lot of room because you go to the supermarkets and there's just, so much great food. And capturing that emerald stone that really represents to me Colombia, having kind of that medium toned wood that speaks to something, again, a bit more understated. Lots of storage space, a few kind of, obviously reproduction prints of Botero's fruits in the kitchen. One of the challenges we actually had here was that in Colombia you have gas, and the gas is required, as is the case in some other countries. You have to kind of have proper slatting for that gas to be, fed outside, which I'm in a neighborhood that is busy. It's both serene, but also you have people driving through. And so it became a little bit noisy. And so we kind of had to figure out how to reconfigure that. But really nice area just to sit at and eat breakfast and look out over the mountains. What I like about this home is that you've got views out two sides. And so you've got north and you've got east. And basically on both sides, you've got either protected structures next door or you've got greenery. And so you've got kind of these unobstructed view corridors. You're seeing more and more new buildings go up in Bogota. It is not like what you'd see in Asia. Again, it's a little bit slower paced in terms of that growth, but you are seeing some glass buildings go up. What I love about this neighborhood that I'm in, and really Bogota in general, is in addition to the green, you have so much brick. You have these beautiful brick buildings. And just looking out and seeing that wall of mountains and different shades of brick and all the greenery that goes with it is, to me, very beautiful. If you saw my building, you would say, well, this is rather nondescript. The building is exactly the same age that I am. It's built in 1984. And for me, that's actually become a calling card of the kind of property that I want to have, because the kind of people who live in this building are all older than I am, I think for the most part. They own their homes, so you don't have a lot of renters. You don't have a lot of people who are transient. You have local people. And in Colombia, I feel like you're able to, become friends with people. You're able to become friends with your neighbors. People come around for Halloween and do trick-or-treating. The one year that I was there, they came and knocked on the door. And so you have a sense of a certain community. Everything is very well managed. The lobby is basic, but what's really nice is you have guards in the front, guards in the back, and so what you're paying for every month, I think it's about $130 a month now, includes some of the basic utilities like the rubbish and the cleaning, but also you have 24/7 security. And one of the guards has been there for 30 years almost. Another guard has been there for 20 years. So these are people that really are part of the building. And there's that sense of community I think you don't necessarily have. I have friends in Colombia who say, yeah, and I don't talk to my guard. He's kind of difficult. Whenever I go back, I am the foreigner, and they recognize me, and they're super pleasant, and they help you, and they'll store your stuff, and it's really nice. What I love about the home office is you have the longest running windows. I think when you're working, you want plenty of natural light, and so I took this room that has this kind of corner window where you have a strip of just being able to look out at these beautiful vistas and being able to sit there, look out, get work done. You have deceptively more closet space here than you would have thought. For me, I maintain a wardrobe here, sweaters and a few suits and the kinds of things that you would wear in Bogota, where it's, constantly 16, 17, 18 degrees Celsius, somewhere in the 60s Fahrenheit. It's a sort of eternal fall, which I actually happen to like a lot, and so I keep a wardrobe that speaks to that. I also like having sort of a local liquor cabinet, and there's the wine store, not so far away from my home. It's just called the Wine Store. You can go, and they have excellent wines from Argentina, from Chile, from Uruguay, which aren't as common. Colombia makes some excellent rums, and you just get things from all around Latin America. I like to enjoy things from around the region, and certainly from around the country whenever it is that I go somewhere. I don't want to just necessarily have the same things everywhere. I do bring my teas, and I love my Smeg tea kettle, and so there are plenty of consumer conveniences that you can find in Colombia. Amazon is available. There's plenty of nice stores that sell things. But for me, it was really fun to design something that was different. It is a cozy space. It is a green space, and something that has some really eclectic touches, from hand-woven pillows from people in the villages, to the toucan lamp, the aforementioned toucan lamp, to the capybaras that sit around. When I bought the property, it was certainly livable. I think they were renting it for about $1,300 a month. It was an older couple, so I bought it from them. The tenant left, and I came in and did some renovation. I don't exactly even remember how much I paid for renovation, but it's very reasonable, and actually one of the better renovation experiences that I've had. Unfortunately, at first slowed down by COVID, but excellent service, great attention to detail, perhaps the most attention to detail of any renovation person I've ever worked with. What is actually very nice about Colombia is that there was a time when I said, well, we didn't renovate the floors. I think perhaps you should renovate the floors. And everything was extremely affordable. I think Colombia is actually a very nice mix of things are affordable, plus you have a good amount of stuff in stock, or that's produced locally, or that comes in. Sometimes in a very small country, you'll have very limited supply, even if things and labor are cheaper. So that's a very nice balance where I think I went on a 10-day trip and I came back and the whole floors were done. It looked perfect. And so most of the renovations were done up front, and there were a few things that were added over time. All of it seemed pretty affordable. And I'm in a neighborhood that is just a great neighborhood to be in. People talk about safety in Colombia. I do feel pretty safe. Obviously, there's little petty crime that goes around. But if you know what you're doing and if you are discerning, I think it's a great neighborhood to be in. You've got restaurants, you've got shops, you've got Ferragamo is down the street. You've got a beautiful Carolina Herrera store, which is in the most beautiful old brick mansion. They turned into a retail shop right in the corner. There are malls. There's just, everything that you could possibly want. Amazing, really cute boutiques, Peruvian food, Colombian food, Italian food, some of the best coffee shops, which are practically everywhere in Colombia. So just a great place where you can go out and walk a few blocks to your supermarket as well, to your local store. People sell avocados, on the street. Aguacates, you can buy one for today or you can buy one for tomorrow, depending on how you want to use it, and they will sell you one right in the street. They push their carts up and down the street and you can buy that. And so there's just a vibe. You go there, you can smell it in the air. It's certainly elevated. So when sometimes I'm taking the stairs up multiple flights, I get a bit more winded than I usually would because you're elevated. But because of that, you have this fresh air. There's just a vibe that is unmistakably Colombia to me. And so very happy to have the home. And I think that if you are looking to spend time in different parts around the world, you can get residence permits, you can get citizenship by making sometimes relatively small real estate investments. Again, I suggest that you consider how much space you actually want or need, depending on how much time you're going to spend there, or how much time you would spend there if something happened somewhere else and you had to go there, like say during a pandemic. But I think having a collection of homes, which you can see is a very affordable price, it costs me perhaps $2,000 to $3,000 a year to keep it up, about closer to $3,000 with the property taxes and with someone coming in and cleaning it every couple months when I'm not there. And if you had a couple of those, I think you'd have a very nice property portfolio, and I'm very happy this is part of mine.